Hey Bats and Ghouls, Ian here for another episode of Goth in an Alcove, and this episode I'm going to talk about the 40th anniversary release of Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. Comes out as 40-year mark in June. So I want to talk about how highly influential this band has been to both the goth and alternative scene over the last 40 years. Also want to talk about the Goth Box DVD Companion. This was a side release by Cleopatra Records for their Goth Box CD set, and I think there's some interesting things of note in that we can talk about. So grab your shovels and let's dig in. Alright, so let's talk about Joy Division and where to begin with that, because a lot of goths and people in the post-punk movement, they're very familiar with this band already. I wanted to make this video for those people that weren't as familiar with Joy Division. You see their t-shirts everywhere, especially for Unknown Pleasures, and a lot of people have no idea what it is, what it's about. So maybe this video might help somebody clear that up, and maybe they'll find some new music that they like. It's also very important to note that Joy Division is one of the forming basis sounds to the goth scene as far as music goes, so I think it's definitely a band worth discussing. Hey, alright, so let's get into the details of who Joy Division is. They started in 1977 in Manchester, England. You had Ian Curtis, who did their songwriting and lead vocals. You had Bernard Summer doing their, he had lead guitar, and he also did keyboards. You had Peter Hook doing bass, and then you had Stephen Morris on percussion drums. These four guys took their love of punk music with acts like the Sex Pistols and Iggy Pop. They also took their love of glam rock from David Bowie and acts like that, and took it into one new sound that we commonly refer to today as post-punk. So music aficionados will tell you that post-punk, basically, it's a very minimal or sparse sound. It's a high lead bass, you have distorted guitars, you have some synth sometimes within the music, and then you also have, at least in the case with Joy Division, your percussion typically follows the melody that the rest of the band was laying out. Many post-punk acts take Ian's lead with a very deep baritone voice in their singing and put it all together, and you have a really unique sound that we call post-punk. Alright, so let's look at Unknown Pleasures. It was recorded in April 1979, though the band had already put out several EPs and singles. Unknown Pleasures was released in June of 1979, and many music critics are immediately quick to label them as an indie hit sensation because of this unique sound that had not really been seen or heard before. So about a year later, the band released their second album, Closer, and sadly, not long after the release of that album, I think it was within about a month, Ian Curtis did commit suicide. It's a really sad note to their story as a band, but I don't want to dwell on that. I do want to celebrate and talk about what their impact is, and the fact that their 40th anniversary release of Unknown Pleasures is out. The remaining members of the band did go on to form the synth-pop band New Order, the three remaining guys. If you're not familiar with New Order, I would really recommend checking it out. They've had a lot of dance club hits throughout the 80s, even impacting stuff within the 90s. They are still going to this day. So definitely that's a whole other video. It doesn't really fall under the goth realm, but many goths do enjoy New Order. But yeah, check it out. I also want to recommend the film Control. This movie came out in 2007. It's a black and white film. It's based on the biography written by Ian's widow, Deborah Curtis, called Touching from a Distance. It's about the formation of the band and leads up pretty much to his suicide. It's a really good film. It is sad and depressing, but it's a very interesting look into his mind and into the formation of Joy Division. Alright, so the album, Unknown Pleasures. The artwork on it was a black and white photo with white pulsar waves. This was originally taken from an encyclopedia. They took a pulsar image and they just inverted it. You'll find many a trendy hipster in a coffee house wearing the shirt today. And it can be noted that the album, to celebrate its 40th anniversary release, is being offered as a reissue on vinyl. They're doing it as a red vinyl release. I believe it comes out in June. You can find it on the neworder.com website. I'll put a link below. I get nothing out of this, but I just thought it'd be worth noting. It's about 35 pounds, which roughly, I think that comes to about $45 US. And they're also shipping it with that album cover image on white instead of black. So Joy Division today still is a very highly influential band within the goth, indie, and alternative community and post-punk. It's also been one that still resonates and I would say highly influences a lot of the sounds that you hear. The 5 tracks that I'd like to recommend by them is She's Lost Control, Isolation, Atmosphere, Dead Souls, and their big hit, Love Will Tear Us Apart. So definitely give them a check out if you can, see what they're about. Their music is noted with some sadness and anger and frustration, but I really like Joy Division, and you can still hear a lot of their sounds in all the music that you're hearing today on the radio. So check them out. Alright, so next up I want to talk about Gothbox. And many fans to the scene, many newcomers, they have a lot of questions about what bands they should check out and what is goth and what is not. They have a lot of misconceptions, so this might help clear it up. So fortunately there was a time when record companies were putting out compilation CDs, which isn't the case really anymore, because today in our tech-heavy world, it becomes really difficult to navigate your way through and figure out like what bands are and are not goth. So if you want a really good foundation to start with, I highly recommend getting one of these compilation CDs. In fact, in 1996, Cleopatra Records actually put out a motherlode 4-disc set called Gothbox, and it contained a variety of over a dozen bands, some pretty big name acts, and it really changed the way people started to get exposed to music. The crazy part too with the Gothbox is that some of these bands fell squarely in the goth category, and what gets confusing is some of the bands are considered goth friendly or goth adjacent. Pretty confusing, right? So now we fast forward to 1999, just 3 years later, and Cleopatra Records came out with a companion DVD set called, appropriately, Gothbox. So I picked up my copy in around 2000. I still have it. I got it secondhand at a used record store. Still have my copy, still watch it every couple of years from time to time. It's a really interesting slice of scene history because without the existence of these bands being played at all on MTV, and there was no YouTube at that time, it's really fascinating because it really gave you the opportunity to see what your bands that you were listening to, what they look like, how they performed in their videos, what they were wearing. It's just a really great way to get familiar with who these goth bands were. There are a couple of music videos on here, high-end production music videos, but it's also really kind of interesting because you get to see what a lot of these bands look like in just live concert footage. And you get to see how stripped down and raw they were in their performances. So it always amazes me too, looking at these videos, to see how goth as a subculture has morphed into this more fashion-driven identity. And when you look at these bands performing, they're all really stripped down in a lot of ways. There's no high-end couture or anything being shown. And in fact, a lot of these guys and women, they have more of the just typical, at most, rock and roll appearance. Maybe, the long hair, maybe some leather jackets. Other than maybe Switchblade Symphony or Alien Sex Fiend, the high-end makeup isn't even an issue. So that's one thing you can get out of these videos. The Gothbox DVD, it's going to feature 15 different videos from different bands, including Switchblade Symphony, The Wake, Alien Sex Fiend, Nosferatu, and Corpus Delicti. There's also a bonus audio section on this as well, and that has 12 different tracks. Alright, so that's my music review for the week. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment below. If you like the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. I do this out of pure love and passion. Goth has been a big part of my life for a very long time, and it's something I enjoy sharing with you all. So until next week, as always, keep it spooky.